Hi, this is my evaluating formal and informal, culturally responsive, and accessible assessments. My objectives is to define what assessments versus evaluations are, the type of assessments that are out there, quality of resources, and my school board's policies. So assessment versus evaluation. Assessments are usually confused with evaluations because people tend to use them hand in hand. But according to the Webster Dictionary, assessment means appraisal, and in the evaluation side, it means to determine the value of something. And if we keep looking at assessment, it also means to identify or working at the weaknesses and strengths to cause a specialized instructions for that student. There are 4 components for assessments, so that's being measured for improvement, motivating students to study, evaluating teaching methods, and working students' capabilities. And evaluations more of looking at the students' abilities towards a certain standard. As we keep moving into it, assessment once again identifies areas for improvement versus evaluations are just about judgment. Assessments provides feedbacks that are intended to help performance improve, and evaluations again are just centered for that standard, if it's met or not. Evaluations are more of a judging aspect versus assessments are the equality. Some examples of assessment. Informal are the ones that are often used, and these are like answering questions in the classroom setting for discussion. These are the less threatening assessments out there, but they are subjected to some bias as they are coming in as answers. There's also formals that are led to higher standards. That means that it would cause more stress. These could be tests for students, and continuous assessments. These are happening throughout the assignment or out throughout the lesson. This helps the teacher assess where students are at, and it helps the students assess where they are at. There's also final assessments. These happen towards the end of the learning, so these are like our chapter tests or finals. Process assessments, these are steps that highlight different procedures. So, for example, if you're doing a math equation, the steps that lead up to the answer are the process, and then the product assessment is your final result. Divergent are more higher cognitive skills, so those are your essays that are free thought. Convergent are the only one answer, so there's a definite answer. There's no thinking outside the box there. Formative, they assess the learning process throughout the feedback or through feedback. And then summative are communicate students' abilities to stakeholders. So this is where we look at through admin's outlook or the school board outlook. So why do these matter? Well, to evaluate effectiveness of our teaching. So us as teachers, are we doing what we're supposed to do? Are we accommodating to those students? And are we assessing if we're even reaching out to these students? The goals, are they being met? Are the kids learning what we want them to learn? And thus are the standards being met? It also assesses what students have learned. It helps us to guide the pace of our classrooms. Can we speed up? Can we skip over some things? Or do we need to slow down and circle back to the beginning of the lesson? And this also helps students be accountable for their own learning, to assess where they are at. Do they understand everything? Do they need to ask questions, or are they doing well? So avoiding ineffectiveness in the classroom is a curvy path, and it's really hard to navigate. But if we know that first, standardized testing is a huge thing in the classroom and it's just inadequate, it's so narrow-minded of what a student can learn in the classroom, and thus us teachers were struggling to teach to the standard and not to what the students' needs are. And that is a big push towards the lack of exceptions for cultural differences. And it also causes a lot of stress on not only the students, but onto the teachers. And so it also pushes aside any barriers that are out there. So like students that have disabilities or students who are English language learners. Determining the quality of curriculum and resources, they should be, if we're going to look at our assessments, if they are good or they are not for our students, are they comprehensive? Can a student understand it without having someone else come in and explain it? Validity, is it educational, and is it proven to work? Is it reliable? Can you use it throughout different barriers, throughout different cultures? And that kind of ties in with our discriminating power. Is it objective? So is it not just skewed to one culture versus others? And is it has a baseness? Can we start somewhere to reach somewhere? Practicability, can we be able to extend ourselves outside of this zone, and is it comparable to others? And utility. Culturally responsive assessments, this is where we get into, does it obtain to all cultures? Does it appeal to their strength, their curiosities? Will it nurture and extend their literacy? So, for example, is it reaching out to their home language? Does it draw the connection between their experiences to the classroom? Because we want to tie in their prior knowledge to what we are learning now. Ways that you can do this is through rubrics. They are able to, in a way, you can have them being formed with the students and parents. So finding out what do they know, what is home life like, and what's the best way to assess the student's ability. And again, this could be by using their home language in the rubric. Other ways you can assess the student's knowledge is by relationships and being able to figure out the whole picture. So are we forming that bond with the students that we want them to do well, not because of a test, but because we want them to be knowledgeable? Ways that we can do this is through like a senior defense, that's collecting artifacts throughout their whole school years. So like if you want to do K through 12 or just junior high through high school, have them collect artifacts that they've learned throughout the year so they can look back and reflect on what they have gained. Personal experiences. This is have them research a topic of their interest that they want to learn more about. So then you're letting them reach out different cultural areas or being a more self-advocate for themselves. So I love this picture from Call, and it's talking about if we have a graduate profile plus the capstone, that would equal to having success for student outcomes, thus having teachers having a retention rate higher. Methods of student assessments. There are different ways we can go about this. One is through self-assessment, having the student reflect and develop their own judgment. Are they learning something? Are they not understanding something? Also through peer assessment. I like doing this in my class. Especially like if we're doing essays and having them swap essays and learn from each other, giving them ideas, sharing thoughts. And then again, through essays, having them develop skills and through their own learning styles. And then one of the common things we see are exams. Again, rubrics gauge a student's knowledge, so you have those different levels, and then that's a great way for students to understand where they may have missed some key info, and it's good feedback. Portfolios, again, those are authentic. The students put investment of themselves into that portfolio. And then capstone projects of what is something they're interested in, a huge a research project or paper, whatever you want it to be. Some cognitive process, we have to look at the reception. Are we getting the information to the students effectively? We want to form objectives, so we want them to know exactly what they are going to learn and what we hope for them to come away with at the end of the lesson. After we set those objectives, we want to have them pull prior knowledge. What do they already know about this topic? And then we're going to present it. After we do that, we have some guided learning. With that comes back into responsiveness, having feedback from the students and from the teachers. And then we want to assess their performance. Did they learn what they are supposed to or needed to? And then we want to enhance that knowledge by helping them to retain that information, not cram for the test and then forget it the next day. So this is where critically thinking comes in. We want them to be able to think about thinking in a way that it's going to bring out better quality work. There are 3 phases in this of analyzing, assessing your thinking, and then upgrading your thinking. A lot of times we have students analyze readings and then pertain in what is that person thinking, and then how could I take that further? And we want them to continuously think that. Some characteristics are analyzing, assessing, reasoning, obstacles to rational thought, understanding ethical reasoning, asking essential questions, close reading, substantial writing, and the logic of discipline. And this is all well, but if we don't have student well-being, then we won't have the assessments that output that we are looking for. So this was another picture that I liked from one of the resources about what the students' well-being looks like. So we have the psychological, physical, cognitive, social, and I'll highlight more on these in a bit. And then you have your proximal sources and then your contextual sources. For the student well-being, it's the sense of being accepted and belong to. A lot of the students that feel like outsiders are 3 times more likely to be unsatisfied with their life. And this also discourages them to seek higher education after high school. Again, the 3 phases, like I kind of outlined, were psychological. That is the sense of your purpose and your self-esteem. Cognitive is more of, do I have the proper problem-solving skills? Can I collaborate and socialize with others? Do I have reasoning and critical thinking skills? And then your physical dimension is, am I have a healthy life? Am I eating correctly? Am I nurtured? Measuring this, there are different ways you can measure this, but a couple that from the resources I found were having not only the students' well-being in mind, but the teachers' well-being in mind would equal success, because teachers and students are constantly feeding off of each other. If a student's well-being is jeopardized, a teacher's is also because they are worried about that. Or vice versa, maybe a teacher is having a bad day and it bounces off onto the students. We can use tools like early development instrument and middle years development, or tell them from me. Factors of well-being, again, the positive relationships between teachers and students, having a belonging and behavior management where we can help students figure out where they fit in the atmosphere. We want to look at the perceptions of testing and get rid of the stressful factor, and we want to get rid of any negative impacts of relationships out there. We want the parents involved. If we have parent involvement in the schools, it forms a healthy relationship between the parents, teachers, and students. And then we want